Welcome, Wildlings. Colin Stuckert here, founder, CEO, Wild Foods Co. Got my water because I've been doing a lot of talking today. And today's video is a short guide to intermittent fasting. This guide is on our website, which you can find at wildfoods.co, and then go to guides and click down to fasting guide, and it'll redirect you to our content area of the website. So I'm going to go over this article a little bit, some of the notes. It's kind of long. It's definitely worth reading. I highly recommend reading. Everybody should be fasting in some way, and that's something I'll also talk about in this video that you don't hear a lot. Most people think of intermittent fasting as a weight loss strategy or like a diet, and literally neither of them are applicable. Fasting is something every human is designed to do because it mimics the way our ancestors lived in the wild for hundreds of thousands of years. We did not evolve to eat 3 square meals a day. We did not have access to refrigerators and supermarkets and food preservation, all these things. So when we had access to food, we would eat it. And when we didn't have access to food, we wouldn't eat it. We would fast, which is why fasting is so beneficial to the human organism. It is a part of our biology. And so let me take a sip of water and let's get to it. Okay, so we have table of contents here. Intermittent basically means intervals, my fasting journey, benefits of intermittent fasting, fasting styles, common intermittent fasting questions, and then butter coffee fasting at the end. So an intro into fasting, talks a little bit about you eat breakfast every day, because I thought it was the most important meal of the day. And when I finally learned that that is basically a scam created by the food corporations to getting you to buy their crappy cereal and bagels and nonsense, I've literally not eaten breakfast in years, and I am better in every way for it. And then so I get a little bit into the fasting misconceptions. The number one misconception that people think about fasting is they think it's about calorie restriction. Well, here's the thing. The reason it's not about calorie restriction is because when you intermittent fast, and again, we're talking about intermittent fasting, not prolonged fasting, completely different things. Intermittent fasting is just time fasting or meal timing, right? Some call it time restricted eating. It means if I'm going to eat 2,000 calories in a day, and I eat most of those calories within an 8-hour window, and then this whole period of time between today and the next day is 16 hours when I don't eat anything, that's intermittent fasting. 2,000 calories here within 8 hours, or 2,000 calories spread out, every 2 hours of the day are completely different things, which is why it's not about calorie restriction. You eat the same amount of calories, and in the day, you just compress them into a period of time that allows you to get a long 16-hour fasting window on the other end. That is really the primary thing, which is why we have here intermittent basically means intervals. To eat in intervals, I go into more explaining what I just talked about, how you can eat 2,000 calories, either in a window or throughout the day. Then we get a little bit into the animal kingdom, and we talk about how a tiger who is a true carnivore can eat, like 88 pounds of meat in a single setting. And then it's estimated that most big predator cats eat around one 88-pound animal a week, and then they basically don't eat the rest of the time. And we aren't true carnivores, but we are omnivores. We're a mix because we can eat plants and animals. We can actually eat a lot of different foods. And so we definitely have carnivore tendencies because we would have gotten so much of our calories and so much of our nutrition from animals, which were harder to come by because animals try to defend themselves. They try to hide. They try to run away. They fight back. Whereas plants are more available, but there's less calories available in plants. And without access to cooking, we wouldn't have access to the same amount of nutrition because cooking makes food more bioavailable for us. And so I won't go down the long rabbit hole that is cooking, but in general, the bulk of our calories would have came from animals because that is where most of them are found. But we could go periods of time without meat. And so, it doesn't necessarily mean we're eating meat every single day. In fact, I would venture to say that hunter-gatherers probably don't eat meat every single day, but when they do eat meat, they eat a large amount of it, and then they go for periods of time without it, right? And so they're using a combination of intermittent fasting while also eating meat when it was available, right? Which would have fallen into some kind of average, maybe it's available a few times a week. Or if you're like the Indians who basically hunted the buffalo to near extinction or to extinction, they would have basically eaten meat all the time. That was it. And so there's actually some good stories about tribes having sayings, basically saying like, we'll eat plants only when there's not real food available, implying that real food was meat or animal products. And so there's a lot of examples of that, but we won't go too off tangent with that. I do go into the calorie content here, kind of show you some of the calories found Like for example, average calories in a pound of meat is 1,500, whereas the calories in other things like spinach or blueberries, like literally you'd have to find 5,000 pounds of raw blueberries to feed 40 Homo sapiens for one day. And this just kind of illustrates how our ancestors could not have survived, let alone propagated to the point where we are at today, if we were living off primarily plants in the plant kingdom. It just wouldn't have been possible. There's also, you can't get vitamin B12 from the plant kingdom, and vitamin B12 you need or you will die. Then I'm going to go into a little bit about how we're not grazing animals, so we shouldn't be snacking 6 times a day, etc. I go into my fasting journey and how I was in the 4 to 6 meals a day camp, doing the whole bodybuilding thing, and just never got the results I wanted. And then I found intermittent fasting, I found paleo, I found primal, I found the whole real food way of eating, and it completely changed my life. And so I follow the 16-8 fasting window myself on most days. Some days I'll do a 20-hour fast, a 24-hour fast. But again, the beautiful thing here is I'm not actually timing it, right? I am literally just, in fact, let's see. I don't want to show that. Okay. I am just going based on my life. And if people around me want to eat and I feel like eating, I'll eat. And if I don't, I don't. Right. For example, before I came up here, 5 o'clock, haven't eaten all day, gonna go to the gym after this, play racquetball. Brent wanted to go eat food because he was ready to eat. And so I thought about it, made a decision, and I was like, you know what? No, I don't really need it. So I'm just going to fast, and I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to work out for 2 to 3 hours. And my first meal is going to be, I don't know, probably like a 20-hour fast really from the day before, because that was the last time I ate. And that's just another thing, like fasting gives you such flexibility to do this, which is amazing. So track your feeding window to start. This is a great way to get started. I highly recommend the 18-6 method, and then just following your fasting schedule in the beginning, because that's going to just make it easier for you. It's also going to help you get to that 16-hour goal every day, which is kind of the magic number where research has shown a lot of the benefit. But more than anything, it's going to get you in the habit of doing it. It's going to help improve insulin sensitivity. It's going to help regulate your appetite, and it's just going to get you used to going without food. And when you do that, your life will literally be changed. Here's a video I did, 3 benefits of intermittent fasting. Makes it simple, appetite control, hormone regulation, all good stuff, all amazing things for your health, for fat loss, for weight loss, etc. Then I get a little bit into fasting and calorie restriction, and how at times you should calorie restrict because there are a lot of benefits, but in general, intermittent fasting and calorie restriction are 2 separate things. Then we get into some of the fasting styles. I follow the 16-8 method usually. Some people do a 24-hour fast every day where they basically eat the same meal every day, like let's say like 8 p.m. And then the last meal was 8 p.m. the day before. That's definitely something that could work. And then we have some final notes on intermittent fasting. We get to some common questions, reader questions, and then how I responded to them, reader question, response, etc. Then we get into butter coffee fasting, which is basically the drink your fat method, which is using coffee, MCT oil, and grass-fed butter, and using that to replace breakfast. And this is actually one of my favorite ways to get people off breakfast. It's kind of the best way to wean off breakfast, because if you're used to eating breakfast your whole life, it's going to be hard to quit cold turkey. Your body is going to want those carbs in the morning, which is why people that try to quit breakfast usually run into problems, because their body revolts. But if you use something like butter coffee, which I call the Drink Your Fat method, and you can actually get your free ebook about the whole method and the recipe and everything at drinkyourfat.com, you get to give your body some nutrition while also getting a lot of the benefits of fasting while ingesting fuel still, right? If you were to go straight cold turkey and eat no breakfast, you're going to have no calories whatsoever, and your body is used to having calories, and so it might not like that. Whereas with something like this, you get your coffee, you add some pure fat from MCT oil and butter, which, there's some debate around this, but in general, it's not going to break your fast the same way that eating whole food was. It's also not going to require your body to expend a lot of energy to digest the way whole food does. And you're also not eating any carbs or sugar, which are the primary things that really ruin you in the morning and that really disrupt a fast. And so the butter coffee fasting is basically using fat instead of whole foods to basically win off breakfast, and I love it, and I highly recommend it. And you can find the recipe here. You can also go to drinkyourfat.com to get the free ebook. The basic recipe is basically 8 ounces of coffee with some butter, 1 to 2 tablespoons, and then a dash of wild MCT oil, and it's delicious, awesome. And once you start doing it, you'll probably never go back. And that's the end of the article. There's a lot here, so I highly recommend you going to read this. Go to wildfoods.co and click guides, fasting guide, and of course any of these other guides. If you want to learn about any of these topics, I highly recommend you get in there. And of course, this is sponsored by Wild Foods, so go to the Wild shop at wildfoods.co and look at some of our superfood, whole food, real food based ingredients as close to nature as possible. We work directly with small farmers and manufacturers that do things with respect to the ingredient and respect to the environment, both things that are integral to what we believe at Wild Foods. And you can use code WILDCEO for 12% off your entire order. My name is Colin Stuckert, and I approve this message. I hope you guys take some of this information and do something in your life. Maybe change a habit. Maybe try to fast one day. Maybe try to skip breakfast one day and just see how you feel. Give it a few days. Let your body adapt. Get used to it. And I promise you, using some kind of fasting in your life and or skipping breakfast, these things can literally change your life. If you have any questions or comments, shoot us an email, info@wildfoods.co. Follow us on Instagram @wildfoodsco, and you can follow me @Colin Stuckert on Instagram. And thanks for watching.